It is my privilege to be here with an amazing group of people in the room and, of course, all of you who are online. We are starting with session number 1. The title is Progress and Challenges from the Front Line, and we're going to be joined by Mavis Nye from the UK.
It is a great honor to introduce our first speaker, Mavis Nye. You need no introduction, Mavis, so I'll just turn this precious time over to you for your remarks as our very first speaker at our 17th conference.
Thank you. Good afternoon or good evening for here. It's my privilege and pleasure on behalf of all the mesothelioma patients and carers around the world to welcome you to the ADAO's International Asbestos Awareness and Prevention Conference. You will hear from more than 40 experts from 7 countries, as always. My asbestos story started in 1960 when I married Ray and washed his clothes. He worked in the dockyard as a shipwright, and asbestos was all around, being installed or taken out of ships. There were no showers in those days. You just came straight home and bathed there, where I would then put the washing into the washing machine. All that dust didn't mean anything to us. We didn't know the dangers of this white dust that Ray had in his hair and in his boots. I've had so much treatment to gain shrinkage, and then it grows on trying to conquer my body again. Recently, the Lancet published malignant mesothelioma recognized as a new disease in the 1950s. It's almost exclusively caused by asbestos exposure and usually diagnosed decades after first exposure. The disease was initially restricted to asbestos workers, but diagnosis after non-occupational exposure continued to surge. Despite the knowledge by WHO and the International Agency for Research on Cancer more than 40 years ago that all forms of asbestos are carcinogenic, global asbestos use increased. These minerals are in our homes, commercial buildings, ships, vehicles, and thousands of products. When asbestos bans were introduced in Europe and Australia, their use surged in countries where traders suggested that asbestos was safe. Despite mounting evidence of the danger, many countries have yet to recognise the urgency of the banning of asbestos and do not support WHO's aim of reducing or ending the incidence of asbestos-related cancers. Representatives of 10 countries, Russia, Kazakhstan, Syria, Venezuela, and more, are some of the countries that continue to block a 15-year-old UN motion to label crocetide asbestos as especially hazardous. The global malignant mesothelioma epidemic shows no sign of abating. Oncologists should reinforce the idea that the continued harm caused by asbestos cannot be reduced without ceasing all asbestos mining and trade, increasing public awareness, enforcing regulations, and improving and diagnosed treatment. Asbestos has silently caused a global epidemic. While both the HSE and the government have said they believe it should be removed, the committee said neither had put forward a clear and comprehensive strategy for achieving this. It wants all asbestos removed from non-domestic buildings within 40 years, starting with the highest risk settings such as schools, saying a clear deadline would help to focus minds. Simple reliance on a set of regulations which devolve asbestos management to individual duty holders, the building owners or managers responsible for the maintenance, will not be good enough, the committee said. We need a system-wide strategy for a long-term removal of asbestos, founded on strong evidence and what is best from a scientific and behavioural point of view. The government have been approached for comment, and the government have just turned down the option of 40 years to remove all asbestos from old buildings. They say it can be managed well. It's being proved when surveyed that this is not happening. We do not have a cure for mesothelioma, but it is a preventable cancer for future generations with the removal of asbestos from all buildings. The research is gaining more and more drugs that can shrink mesothelioma, but there still isn't a cure. But asbestos management and removal is a cure, and it is the only way we will beat this continuous death sentence that goes on and on each year around the world. I have an asbestos group on social media, and I get questions like, does this look like asbestos? I've just removed a fireplace. I've pulled down a shed. Does the corrugated roof contain asbestos? Can I remove asbestos myself? You must never handle or try to remove asbestos yourself. Asbestos becomes harmful once it has been disturbed, as this causes the fibres to be released, which they may then be inhaled. If you encounter what you suspect to be asbestos, you must not touch it. Instead, you should keep it isolated and seek specialist advice. Though, of course, a survey should always be carried out. I admire all the people involved in taking asbestos out of buildings, and we must see that they have PPE and protection, and most important, they need proper training. Everyone should have some training in asbestos and asbestos awareness. They must keep their lungs safe. Too many die each year around the world. They have banned Asbestos UK, but that isn't so to say that we are safe from its deadly hold on us. We have so many tons in old buildings. Our hospitals, schools, museums and colleges still have the deadly substance hidden in them. Asbestos has been banned in more than 60 countries, and yet asbestos exposure is the #1 cause of work-related deaths in the world. Approximately 90,000 people die from asbestos-related diseases globally each year. An estimated 125 million people worldwide remain at risk of occupational exposure to asbestos, and about 1.3 million US workers in construction and general industry are at risk of exposure today. When will we take charge and ban this material and make our world safer? I've just one last message to the mesothelioma warriors. Stay positive. I'm the longest living immunotherapy mesothelioma patient in the UK. I'm now in my 13th year since my diagnosis in 2009. We are beginning to survive mesothelioma, but we must ban throughout the world. Let's save the future's lungs. Thank you.
That was truly lovely and moving and necessary. I want to ask you a couple of quick questions, Mavis. When you washed Ray's clothes, as you shared, you and Ray didn't know that asbestos was harmful. In a few words, how would you tell the audience how this has impacted you and Ray with your mesothelioma diagnosis?
Well, it sort of turned our life around. We had plans for retirement, and it always seems, this took 48 years. And just as we retired and we were we bought a motorhome, we sold our house and bought a park home, and we were just going to clear off to Europe for the winter and come here for the summer. All those plans go. Everything that you planned for or everything you worked for just went and left me fighting. And lucky, I've been so lucky with the NHS, and I've been 13 years with no operation, just all drugs. It's really won through.
Well, I'm thankful that you share your story, and I'm also thankful that you participate in clinical trials, because not everyone is a candidate for a trial, but they've learned a lot with your body and the medicine and your blood and all the other things that you've shared. So here's the question. If President Biden was to see your video, what's your message to the United States and President Biden about asbestos?
Please wake up. Please know that you should be banning it by now. You just shouldn't let people suffer like this. You're paying compensation, so you are aware that it is a very dangerous substance and it is killing so many. And so please ban it.
Thank you, Mavis. I'll make sure that people know that you have an active Facebook group and share some of your other educational materials, and especially your foundation that you've done so much great work on. So heartfelt thanks from my kitchen table to yours. Thank you for kicking off our conference and ensuring it's going to be the best of the best.
Thank you so much, Mavis, sharing all of your expertise with all of us and all the mesothelioma warriors across the country. And I appreciate the shout out, the wake up call to our president.